suddenly the RTE people, they pull me away and they say, you've got a phone call. And in fairness, it was Jack Lynch. And I hardly knew Jack Lynch. I mean, I met him a few times. He got on the phone and said, hello, Carl, in Irish. And Maureen and I are delighted that you won the song contest. And then in English, in Cork, I never thought you could sing like that, boy. In his great Cork accent, the courtship started. And this song, it weaves its way all the way through the book.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a dramatic conclusion at the end. It becomes known in the family as Liam's Heir.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it happened that there'd be a movie or a mini-series made out of it. Why don't I try and write Liam's Heir as such?
Mm-hmm.
So I did, and I brought in the orchestra. I'm happy with the result. Number one, don't expect to make money. Number two, if you have some good friends, anybody
Sure.
can write a book, provided your ego will allow you to send it out and take ferocious criticism and panning and everything. But at the other end, have a better book because of it.
So you're very welcome to Cork Creative, Carl.
Thanks so much, Patrick. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, the pleasure is all ours indeed. And we're going to get started with the most pressing topic, which is the imminent launch of your book on the 26th of August with Mercier Press. So the book, called Athenry, is very musical, and music infuses Athenry. The book title references the song. The initial setting is very musical with its reference to haunting airs, particularly Liam's Heir as well, which I'm sure we're going to touch on today, to the Cayleys, piano, Bach, concert pianists, and Beethoven that infuse all of the stories throughout the book. It very much reflects your life in music. So can you tell us a little bit about your life in music to get us started?
My life is music. And the interesting thing is, thankfully, I like all styles of music. Literally, anything you throw at me, I appreciate, and I try and find the art. But I was thinking of this along a few days now, sort of getting ready to do a little talk in the library on the 23rd of August in Cork. Um, my first mentor was definitely my first teacher, Benny Kyla. I went to the model school in Cork. We all did. My parents wanted us to learn Irish pretty well. And she taught us all these marvellous, simple little Irish songs, one of them being Bógin Islamid. Remember? Bógin Islamid, Timmy Gadola, Bógin. And she'd ask us, I remember, like to try and imagine what was happening. And we'd be learning these in Irish. And then I go into about third and fourth and fifth class, still in the model school. And we had these marvelous teachers, Ristarda Marhu, Mossy Donegan, and they were all like not too far from the 1916 even. I believe Mossy Donegan actually fought in the rebellion. He was the headmaster. And they were teaching us all these marvelous myths about Cuchulainn and the Tuatha Dé Danann and the Firbolg and Queen Maeve. And apparently it was all in Irish, And I'd go home and I'd relate the stories excitedly back to my parents in English. And that sort of, I believe, started or created a huge imagination thing for me. And then I went into secondary school and I hated it because we were all kicked and shoved and beaten and whacked, the usual story of the old days. And it was like, who's going to get beaten up today? Am I going to get beaten up today? And it's all a blur. But what saved me though was after school, about 3:00, I'd go to the Savoy or the Pav or the Capitol or the Lee Cinema, and I'd watch a movie. And sometimes I'd come in halfway through, but that didn't matter. But the beautiful themes of the movies, the music that was played all the way through. You see, these were the days, like, just television had just arrived. There was RTE1, there wasn't RTE2, and so that was the only the only access to music I had. And then my first job was a messenger boy for Miss Walsh down the street on the back Douglas Road, and I'd be delivering messages. But the reason I got the job was I desperately wanted to buy a transistor radio. And it was a small little thing, maybe 9 inches, 10 inches wide, and brown leather. I can still smell the leather. And I would listen every night, like loads of other teenagers, to Radio Luxembourg. It
Mm,
was a pirate radio station. Do you
mm.
remember that?
My parents
Outside
do.
the, yeah, outside the international waters or
Mm,
whatever. And they would beam in the latest pop music and rock music and blues music from America. And I'd be glued to it every night, like so many other people under the curtain. We had no earphones.
mhm,
Um, and interestingly, it would finish with a song called At the End of the Day. It wasn't a hymn, but man, it was gorgeous.
mm,
Uh, and that was it. Music was a huge part of me. And if anybody asked me back then, like in 50 years down the road, I'd write a book, a historical love story.
mm,
I would say they're mad. But those little seeds were there
mm,
and the imagination of the movie. And when I was writing the book, I was sort of writing a screenplay more than a book, you know?
mhm,
And I could sort of see and hope that maybe someday somebody might take it in a mini series because I was doing little blocks, bits and pieces,
mhm,
you know, the famine in Ireland and then the deportation to Australia. And
mhm,
music in the book, it breaks down all the cultural barriers that we have
mhm,
from prisoner to guard, from uh, white man in Australia to Aboriginally in Australia, you know, their
mhm.
music. And Liam, our hero, was fascinated by the didgeridoo, you know,
Yeah.
of the Aborigines. And he got into trying to learn how to play that and how to learn the Aboriginal language and the interplay between the tin whistle and the didgeridoo. And of course, as going back, he heard all this classical music for the first time ever going over on the convict ship. And I simply incorporated all the little bits of music I possibly could into the book because
Mhm.
I sort of felt I knew what I was talking about.
Write what you know.
Yeah,
Indeed.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. And when you mentioned Radio Luxembourg and how that was a formative experience, you spent time in you did your degree in UCC's Department of Music as it was then as well, and you were
yeah.
exposed to Sean O'Reilly, the great composer of traditional Irish pieces. So, how did that inform your appreciation of music then? That kind of more classical training, shall we say?
Interestingly, Sean O'Reilly was another man when another teacher when we went up to
Mm,
college. I didn't know of his huge fame and all
mm,
he had accomplished with Kiltory Coolan.
mm,
But it was sadly after he died at 41 that I started understanding and learning and appreciating traditional music
mm,
as it should be through my great friend Sean O'Shea.
mm,
Sean was the lead singer, if you like, for Kiltory Coolan.
mm,
And when he was very much in demand as a singer, entertainer, and when poor old Sean died, Sean O'Shea asked me would I be his accompanist.
mm,
I had made a little bit of a name playing around Cork and Blackrock Castle and all these places, being, you know, doing the lounge act, you know, as the this wonderful wafts of these gourmet foods are passing by me, and
mm.
I'm going to fish and chips on the way home, you know. But Sean O'Shea, uh, I had to learn how to accompany him with
Mm,
great songs like Carrick Fergus, so many wonderful tunes.
mm,
And ultimately, he asked me to arrange an LP for him, getting the right feel for traditional music.
sure.
And it was Sean O'Shea more than Sean O'Reilly got me into
Okay.
my appreciation of Irish music.
How did, I suppose, Irish music interplay with the pop music that you would have listened to on your transistor radio then as well? Was there an interplay other than the fact that there were two musical genres that you were very proficient in. Is there
No,
a
as far as I saw it, there was no interplay. It
okay,
was one scene when I play the piano and
sure,
sing a pop song, and the other when I accompany Sean O'Shea on a
okay,
gorgeous old air. Um, I, I I didn't see the two
sure,
until the Irish people like myself saw the beauty of the Irish songs as Sean O'Riordan's legacy took hold around the country
sure,
uh, with the chieftains and
yeah,
all those wonderful traditional musicians, not changing traditional music, but
mm,
enhancing it with their own style. And I just appreciated it more and more and more. Um, and I'm glad there's some traditional elements in the book. For example, Liam and Moira are my heroes,
mhm,
and they meet at an Irish wake, sorry, an American wake or a living wake,
mhm,
which, as you probably know, is a couple that somehow got the money to get out of Ireland in the
mhm,
18 during the famine. Their parents throw a little party for them, knowing they'll never see them again. Thus,
mhm,
the living wake. And Liam is a masterful tin whistle player and a brilliant horse trainer. And
mhm,
his dad asks him to play something appropriate at the wake, which he does. And that he catches the eye when he's playing it, his eyes closed, of course, catches the eye of Moira, who used to have a big crush on him in the old days when they were
mhm,
teenagers. She's gone off to the big house in Dublin to work for landlords up in Dublin in their townhouse, and the courtship started. And this song, it weaves its way all the way through the book,
mhm,
and there's a dramatic conclusion at the end. It becomes known in the family as Liam's heir.
mhm,
And I thought to myself, well, again, remembering all my days in the Pav and the Lee and the Capitol and Savoy with these massive epic theme songs, I thought if it ever happened that there'd be a movie or a mini
mhm,
series made out of it, why don't I try and write Liam's Air as such?
mhm,
So I did, and I brought in the orchestra. I'm happy with the result. And
very
it's
cool.
sort of a little homage to Sean O'Riordan and Sean
Mhm,
O'Shea, because without them, I wouldn't have had the understanding of the richness and the chordal changes and the mood
sure.
of of the tune.
And you call out that in the book as well, the ornamentation and the grace notes and the sense of spontaneity perhaps that comes from Irish music that isn't always permitted in more rigid musical genres, shall we say.
Exactly. The technique, if you listen to a good player in any,
Mhm,
be it a squeeze box, fiddle player, tin whistle,
mhm,
whatever, man, it is incredibly complex. And it's jazz like in its sort of spontaneity.
sure.
And it's only when I tried to play a reel at the speed of, say, a river dance reel, that you really, really appreciate the wonderful depth and music ability of it all. And
Mhm,
I was in America in 1986 when Riverdance came out. I
mhm,
knew Billy Whelan a little bit in Ireland.
mhm,
He arranged one or two of my records when I was in Ireland, living in Dublin.
mhm,
But I don't think people in Ireland have any appreciation of the lift he gave to the Irish psyche. And I mean, I left in 1980, in the 1983,
Mhm.
and 350,000 other people, young people, did as well.
Yeah.
Ireland was on its knees. And 10 years later, sort of, give or take, we have this incredible Irish river dance, and it
Mhm.
shows the world the the absolute subtleties, the wonderful Irish music and the Irish dancing. That lifts the psyche of Ireland,
Mhm.
as did as did U2. I mean,
Mhm.
man, oh man, we have one of the world's rock bands and they're Irish. We have one of the biggest shows in Broadway and it's Irish. That was a huge psychic plus to the Irish. And I'm here in America sort of seeing all this,
Mhm.
and beaming away. I worked in Sweden for 1 month every year for about 14 years when I was about 17 to about whatever, 20, 30,
Mhm.
whatever. And it was the time of ABBA. And again, a small country like Sweden, insular, just like Ireland,
Mhm.
with a little, well, of course, we had a huge inferiority complex due to our history. But
Mhm.
again, I could see how they were so, so proud of, of them representing Sweden in such a marvelous way on the world stage.
Mhm.
So music, man, as I said, to me, music is everything.
That opens up the thread we need to pull on about 1979 and you becoming Ireland's happy man
Oh
and
yeah.
your experience with Eurovision as well, indeed. But you'd already sang with show bands. You released your own singles at that point as well. But like, what was your experience of Eurovision like? Was
Yeah.
it a different from your perspective? I suppose it's much more overproduced or it's much more produced now. What was
Oh
it
yeah.
like in 1979 and what was it like, particularly in Jerusalem in 1979, with everything that was happening in the region at that point?
Well, first of all, with everything that was happening in the region at that time, it was a fascinating weekend because in Camp David in America, in Washington, President Sadat, Carter, and Sadat and Begin
Mhm.
were signing the Camp David peace treaty accord with Egypt. So finally, Israel and
Mhm.
Egypt were at peace. And there was a massive buzz in Jerusalem when I was there.
Mhm.
Um, and interestingly and brilliantly for Israel, they had a song called Hallelujah. How could that lose? Yeah.
And it
But
didn't.
it did actually. Deservedly, it was the winning song that year. It was
Yeah.
very, very good. But
Mm.
on the getting away from that, then, I mean, we were in our little shallow little contest called the Eurovision with all this historical stuff taking place. But at the time, once again, for
Mm.
all the wannabes like me in all the countries of Europe, there was really no way to get yourself a recording contract. Really
Mhm.
nothing,
Mhm.
except win your country's run or leg of the song
Nomination.
contest.
Yeah.
And I was giving piano lessons in Dublin. I was living in Monkstown. I left Cork in 1977 and started off giving piano lessons, going from house to house for £2 every half an hour. And my rent in Monkstown was £45 a month. And some months I was sweating that I wouldn't make the
Mm.
when the Mrs. Stritch would call for her money. Uh, and so Saturday before, I'm giving piano lessons, and we had a little band,
Mhm.
nothing like the heyday of the show bands. We were just driving around, small little crowds every night. Who the hell was Cathal Dunne and Stateside or whatever?
Mhm.
And I go to the song contest and I win the song contest. And at the time, as, as I said, one station in all the countries in Europe, and whoever wins that goes forward to the Eurovision. You are an overnight name. And it
Mhm.
was absolutely massive. I mean,
Mhm.
so powerful. Interestingly, the first person that gave me a call when we were in the green room, you were only allowed to invite one person to the song contest. And I gave my dad an awful hard time, because dad, God rest him, Jared, he was an academic. And
Mm.
I was the absolute opposite to that. And I broke his heart at every stage. So to try and make it up in a small way, I asked Dad, would he come with me? And
Mm.
when I won, and all the razzmatazz and the excitement of it,
Mm.
you could see Dad's like, like disappointment whenever he looked at me lifting. And that was bigger than winning the song contest. And then um, I'm being pulled back and forth by various people and
Mm.
reporters and stuff. And suddenly the RTE people, they pull me away and they say, you've got a phone call. And in fairness, it was Jack Lynch. And I hardly knew Jack Lynch. I mean, I
Mm.
met him a few times, but not in any sort of personal way, really.
Sure.
Uh, I mean, we were younger,
Yeah.
um, but he got on the phone and said, hello, Carl, in Irish. And Maureen and I are delighted that you won the song contest. And then in English, in Cork, I never thought you could sing like that, boy, in his great Cork accent. And I could see the class, first of all, of Jack Lynch,
Mm.
and secondly, the humor. And I could see why everybody loved him. Well,
Yeah.
most
No, indeed.
everybody anyway,
No, for
until I
sure.
got to America.
It seemed life had no answers for me, no special meaning or plan. How could I be a happy man? Then just like in a love song, you're here, making each day seem so clear. Now I can smile, I'm a happy man. I'm in love and I'm alive, happy man. Got the sun inside, happy man. I've got a girl on my mind, love in my heart, happy man. I'm in love and I'm alive, happy man. Got the sun inside, happy man. So now the whole world can see I've got all I need. I'm a happy man.
In terms of with the Eurovision, I suppose, as you said, you get the bump in profile and you sold a prodigious amount of records of Happy Man after that as well. So, what informed your decision then in 1983 to move to America? What was your plan then?
My plan in 1983, I had two choices, Patrick: emigrate or go back to £2 every half an hour giving the piano lessons.
Okay,
And it was an easy choice.
fair.
I knew I had to go. I had a lovely girlfriend in Dublin, and it was sort of heartbreaking to think that I might have to go and all that. I didn't know how to go. I mean, okay, I got to go to America, big deal. And interestingly, I don't have a single cousin in America, probably due to the fact that most of my dad's from Waterford City and mum
Mm.
was from Cork City and all that. All their, they never had to emigrate because they all got jobs.
Mm.
And thankfully, they were all smart. But I was in Dublin and I was the musical director of what they call the Cabinteely Singers. It was a
Mm.
pop choir in
Mm.
Dublin, and I used to be the musical director of the Montfort Singers in Cork. And Michael Casey, who was second in command of music in RTE, was their original musical director.
Mm.
And then when he went to Dublin, he became Cabinteely director. And so when I got to Dublin, my first call was to Michael, and
Mm.
we had lunch in the canteen of RTE. And he said, would you take over the Cabinteely Singers for me? Absolutely swamped with work, da 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 da.
Mm.
And the big thing was it was £10 on a Tuesday night. Huge.
Mm.
And so I had to go for the audition,
Mhm.
and it was tough, but thankfully I got it. And I instantly had £10 every Tuesday night. But more importantly, I had 40 friends in Dublin. I was on my own
Yeah.
again.
Mm.
So anyway, Valerie Quirk, who's a fabulous lady, still is, thankfully, and her husband Noel, she was the music director, if you like, at the time,
Mm.
invited me at that time in 1983 to a party. And
Mhm.
I was absolutely depressed. I didn't want to go anywhere. But she says, he's quite a swashbuckling type of, James Bond type of fella. And he lives in a semi-detached castle in Killiney. And I'm going, wow, that's interesting, isn't it? And so I decided to go, and sure enough,
Mm.
we arrived at his huge semi-detached castle with turrets and concrete uh, decks going out to the water. Absolutely gorgeous. And inevitably, I'm asked to play the piano.
Mm.
And this guy, Tom Devlin, comes over and says, what are your plans? And I said, well, I've got no plans, really. Everything is
Mm.
dead. Ballrooms are gone.
Mm.
The disco is king. I'm going to go to America. And he was, okay. And about two weeks later, I get a call from Tom. He's in Michigan. His brother had just had a heart attack, and he's suddenly seeing the potential of the golf club as a dining place. It was a very public or
Mm.
very nothing golf course, to be honest. But he thought it was marvelous, and he's knocking walls and he's painting, and he very charismatic.
Mm.
The people are drawing in for him, not for the food or anything. And he says, "I want you to come over and play." And he said, "When?" I said, "Yesterday." And I said, "Oh." So that is how I came to America, on the condition that he would try and get me some other work, because I had no connections at all. And he could
Sure.
sell sand to the Arabs.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
that's how I got there, and stay there for a couple of months. He would drive me every Sunday, fair play to him. We went to Kalamazoo, Toledo, Detroit, and finally we got to Chicago.
Mhm.
And we went into an Irish American bar, and there was a guy I didn't know, but became a good friend of mine from Clare, George Casey. He's a very well-known comedian over here.
Mm.
He recognized me from some of the pictures from Eurovision or something.
Mhm.
And he said, "This is not the place for you. Go out to the south side, talk to a fella called Tom Fox, and I'm sure he'll hire you." Off we go out. And like, going from the north side of Chicago to the south side of Chicago is like going from Dublin to Drogheda. It's huge
Yeah.
and packed with traffic and all that stuff. Well, we get there and talk to Tom, and Tom Devlin gives him his spiel about me, da
Mhm.
da da da, Eurovision, ghetto now before he becomes a huge star, blah blah blah, BS. And he pulls a piano out of the closet or something and throws me on the piano. I do a few tunes, and he hires me.
Mm.
And he hires. This is approximately October, and he hires me for January, February of the following year. I come home. I know the game is up in Ireland.
Mhm.
Tell the band, break up, sadly, sell all the equipment. And most awful of all was leaving my girlfriend. And
Mm.
I come over to America. And that's why I came.
Mm.
And it's the greatest country in the world. It's been
Mhm.
very good to me.
Mhm.
When I landed in JFK, I couldn't believe, like, this is 83 now. This is a long time ago.
Mm.
I couldn't believe the positivity of it all, and have a nice
Mhm.
day, sir, and all this. And ultimately, it's 5 words. What can I do for you? That's America. How can I help?
Yeah.
What can I do for you? And I love that.
Mhm. Is America still like that, do you think?
Yes, the
Okay.
heart, the heart of the people is still there.
Okay.
Yes, it's very divided now, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Um, and we're hoping that it'll get better.
Sure.
But I have great, great friends, Republicans and Democrats.
Mhm.
And if they're Republicans, we just don't talk politics, because we'll fight.
And in our case, we'll talk a little bit more about your book now. So, coming back to Athenry, I mean, the famine is vividly described in great detail in the book, and I know that you've used another Cork Creative guest, recent Cork Creative guest, Michelle O'Mahony, was an advisor for you in providing some of that historical detail. Can you describe how that process worked and how the famine drove the narrative in the book?
Well, first of all, I had written the book before I met Michelle, and the
Hmm.
book has been available in America for the last 3 years, um, basically on Amazon, and I sell it at my shows. That's
Sure.
about it. Nothing dramatic or crazy.
Hmm.
Um, and I, I knew that I wanted to get it published, and
Hmm.
the reaction from the book from people was saying like it was very, very positive
Hmm.
all the time. I even one time, I remember a fella last year in Florida, he comes up to me and he says, Carl, he says, I want to tell you something. He says, last year I bought your book. He said, now look, in fairness, he says, it was a charity buy. And I burst out, and yeah, he said, yeah, he said, I was just buying it just to support you, like
Hmm.
CDs are gone, da, 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 da.
Hmm.
So, but he said, I loved it.
Hmm.
I really loved it. And so I'm confident that it needs to get out to a bigger market.
Sure.
And I know the drill. You've got to get, first of all, you got to get a literary agent
Hmm.
interested in the book. And she would then go to a publisher. She has the credibility to have the publishers have a look at it. And
Hmm.
that's how it works. And
Sure.
47 times I've been turned down by literary producers in New York, in New Orleans, in Los Angeles, in Chicago. And the last time I was in Ireland, I decided I would try the Irish publishers
Hmm.
and just simply, posted it to them and said,
Hmm.
hello, have a look at this, please. And amazingly, Mercier Press, Dee Collins, God bless her, contacted me there a few months
Hmm.
ago and said, we'd be happy to publish your book. We like it. We've read it. But we want you to have a lady called Michelle O'Mahony talk to you. And there are a few historical inaccuracies in the book, and she is an expert in it.
Hmm.
And we would appreciate if you and her would liaise together. And 3 or 4 weeks ago on WhatsApp, we were on the phone for 6 hours a day, intense. She's brilliant, as you know.
Hmm.
And we
For sure.
went through every page, sometimes like word by word.
Hmm.
And she just didn't want the literary snipers, if you like, to pick it
Sure.
apart when it's being reviewed. She wanted to have it authentically correct. And what better girl than Michelle? And she did a
Sure.
fantastic job. And the book is way better from her input. And it was a brilliant move on Mercier Press, I have to say.
Hmm.
And it's giving me real confidence with them moving forward.
Brilliant. Liam, the hero of the story, he emerges from his transportation to Australia, to quote during the book now, a more self confident and worldly wise
Hmm.
young man
Hmm.
because of his encounter with people on the boat who teach him about music and teach
Yeah.
him how to read and write.
Yeah.
Not to maybe overstretch this, perhaps, but would that indicate a certain advocacy and a belief on your part in the using imprisonment as a means of self improvement and education rather than strictly for punishment and retribution?
Well, I agree with any educational program that's available
Hmm.
to a prisoner. In the book's case, or in Liam's case, it is true that in the latter part of the famine years, the British people rose up in outrage of the conditions of convict shipping to Australia. Remember, like Patrick, there was from about 1788 to about 1888, something like 180,000 people shipped over, men and women, like mostly men,
Hmm.
for the new as labor, and some
Hmm.
as breeders. Unfortunately, put it that way for
Yeah.
women, um, for the new British colony. the hardest part of my research for the book was actually convict ships. There's
Mhm.
very little available,
Very good.
and I'm reading and reading. Like this germ of an idea came along about 7 or 8 years ago to me. I'd written a book, my first book, about 10, 13 years ago. It
Mhm.
was a sort of a semi-autobiographical thing about me and the show bands in Ireland. It was called
Mhm.
"Put Your Rosary Beads Away, Ma," and it sold. It sold very well because I was busier than I am now at shows,
Mhm.
in America. But one day when I was researching, I was on what they call the Trove website. It's the
Mhm.
Western Australia's website for information, mostly about Aboriginals, etc., and their spirituality,
Mhm.
But I came across a little unknown fact that there was a microfilm in the Western National Library of Perth of an actual convict who went over on the convict ships, one of them, and he wrote a daily journal. And I said,
Mhm.
got to get my hands on that. And so I called them and they said, oh, sir, it's on a microfilm. We don't have it on print and to
Mhm.
be very expensive, blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, I read your mission statement and it said this library is to advance the positivity and the benefits and the beauty and all the spirituality of Aboriginal people.
Mhm.
And I said, well, my hero is a guy called Kumba, and he plays a huge role in the
Mhm.
book. And he actually, I won't spoil it for people who might read it, but, and they said, well, let it with me. And about a week later, they came back and said, I've talked to my superior and he will do it, $100. I said, fantastic.
Nice.
Called him, give him my card. And 2 weeks later, I get this old uh, PDF file of a sepia faded journal, about 130 pages. And I had the name of the ship, the weather, the conditions, the food, the actual convicts mixed with women who were going over to meet their husbands who had served their sentences,
Mhm.
etc. And the fact that they were had teachers on the way over to
Mhm.
teach the convicts how to read and write. Liam was illiterate. He had a spattering of English, uh, and together with an actual convict, an Englishman who he befriended, gave them, as we call in the old days, a grind in reading and writing. Do you remember that word? Uh,
I was a victim of a few grinds back in the day to get through secondary school.
well, my name was Cathal Dunne, but he was very instrumental,
Mhm.
fictitiously, in
Mhm.
teaching Liam how to read and write. And it was there on board at night when things got a little bit more relaxed as they got into the journey
Mhm.
that he heard the classical music for the first time. And he was held in jail for 3 years in an English dockside situation
Mhm.
where he became virtually an engineer. So he by the time he was got to Australia, he was virtually an intellectual.
Yeah, yeah. A man of many skills at that point, for sure.
Absolutely.
And the Trove website that you referenced there, Cathal, that's the site that then used for the research that you did into Aboriginal culture and music that
Yeah.
informed the character then within the Kumba, the Aboriginal man who befriends and becomes effectively a soulmate of Liam throughout his journeys.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So the at the end of the book, or I don't want to issue spoilers, but the movement to America in the book signifies the new beginning and the pursuit of true freedom, I suppose, would be fair to say based on the narrative of the book and my reading of it. Um, I suppose, how does that decision resonate for you with the historical reality of the Irish diaspora and the hope of many immigrants carried for a better life when they went to the US? Is it that, did America come to symbolize that pure freedom in the 80s and before that, do you think?
Well, in the context of the book,
Hmm.
he meets American people,
Hmm.
and they're all, like I said earlier, very positive,
Hmm.
uh, seem to be empathetic and compassionate, a lot of them talented.
Hmm.
And he's curious, and in the goldfields of Bathurst near Sydney, he befriends, as you probably read,
Mm.
several people. One of them being pretty, um, a pretty intelligent Irish American, and
Mm.
he persuades him to come over and start a stud farm in
Mm.
Sacramento. His intent is to get to Sacramento and send for Moira and
Mm.
Tomas, but things unravel and get a bit
Sure.
complicated and
Well,
change of plan.
that's the narrative arc.
Yeah, yeah,
We won't give too
yeah,
much away.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of, just briefly about another character as well, that you have this character Harry Kitchener,
Oh,
and
yeah,
I think it would be safe to say a neurodivergent character.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
in that he has as that strange genius, and which is unlocked via piano and his relationship with Tomas, which is crucial to his progress. Is there a particular inspiration that you had for Harry's character? And what research did you undertake to kind of unpick Harry's perspective within the book?
yeah. Again, when we were in secondary school, I had a great friend in Cork called Jimmy Ramsell,
Mhm.
and we would go play piano and dance and sing a little bit at a school for Down syndrome kids
Mhm.
at the time. And uh, you learn a lot very quickly, and you learn how obsessed they are with music, and music, as you know.
Mhm.
And it just occurred to me in the book, wouldn't it be an interesting uh, subplot, really, if Moira, who has nothing, in literally nothing, to have a perfect child, and Elizabeth, the landlord's wife, who has everything, uh,
Mhm.
overtly, uh, have a child with special needs.
Mhm.
And there is no terms like that mentioned in the book, but
Mhm.
essentially, uh, Harry has autism and
Mhm.
he's virtually a savant. And I thought it would be an interesting counterplay and again bring in the music once again, because I know, I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about music to a certain degree.
Sure.
And
It's a
it's
very modest way of putting it.
no, it was interesting. And if I ever write a sequel, I have another nice idea about Harry and Tomas being together.
Okay. And within this book and the sequels to come, I mean, the book has a very lively pace and it presents multiple narrative viewpoints throughout. Liam, Moira, being the principal heroes. I mean, the book, as you said, and you've called it out already, it reads to an extent like a screenplay. So, what are your hopes for the book in the future? Is What would you like to see it be adapted into?
Kathleen and I are crazy about Outlander. Have you heard? Have you seen that?
Yes, indeed.
It's probably a bit light for your tastes, but to cut a long story short, it's set in 1766 in America, or sorry, Scotland initially.
Hmm.
She goes through stone. She's a nurse during the Second World War in Scotland, and she goes back in
It's
time and
Katrina
falls in
Balfe,
love.
the Irish actress. Is
Yeah,
that
she's
it?
gorgeous. And we sit there. Um, Kathleen is in love with Jamie. I'm in love with Claire, and we're all very happy, and we love it. So I see it as something along those lines.
Okay. So you've already identified a potential leading lady for the role of Maura and Katrina
No,
Balfe, is
actually, no, no.
it?
I hate to say at this point, Katrina could perhaps be the mother, maybe Moira or Elizabeth. You know,
Fair
not
enough.
because I mean she's wonderful and gorgeous.
Mm. No, it's and it's that series has run for many seasons, and and again due to the globe-trotting nature of Athenry as well, it has that similar potential, no doubt. Okay.
Yeah,
So back to the book itself. It's available from Mercier Press from the 26th of August this year in 2025. great timing as well, in that it marks the 80th anniversary of Mercier Press and the 180th anniversary of the famine. Very prescient timing indeed. So, could you give us an idea of what kind of events will be structured around that in August when you visit Cork later in August this year to support the book?
The only one that is set in stone at the moment is the 23rd of August, Saturday at
Mm,
4 o'clock at the City Library. We have the Heritage Week in Cork.
mm,
And thanks to a friend of mine in Cork called Jim Williamson, he organized me to be part of this book week and to
mm,
give a book talk. And then thankfully, soon after that, I get this lovely email from Mercier Press. So it very, very surreptitiously, if that's the word, came along and it all joined together. So
mm.
everybody is welcome to come along and hopefully
That's
we can go for a drink afterwards.
brilliant.
Anybody who's interested. And I'll be talking about reading some little bits from the book,
Mhm.
playing Liam's Air, playing my new song that's I've just written about Cork, Cork My Home,
Indeed.
and probably Happy Man, and
Brilliant.
uh, maybe one or two more.
Great.
I hope to do a few radio interviews while I'm there. Michelle is helping me promote it among reviewers and
Mhm.
whatever we can get. The hardest part, like the easy part, even though it wasn't easy, was writing the book. The hardest part is to promote it because I thought music was hard to, to get yourself out there.
Mm.
Man, everybody and his mother has written a book. It's crack.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of
Oh yeah.
noise, and it's just having the signal to break through. That's the but um, I've no doubt it'll be successful, and you've Michelle in your corner too. So it's we have high hopes, and of course we'll post any links to all of these events in the podcast show notes as well, so people can view those
Thank
and
you.
also see the link to the book as well. We ask this of everyone called to close, and it's the advice, what wisdom you'd like to impart to listeners, what advice you would give to those who are exploring the possibility of writing historical fiction or writing a book of their own. What advice would you give them based on the process that you followed for your first book, your semi-autobiographical book, and also now for Athenry?
Very, very simple. First of all, don't depend on it to make money. All right. None of us are John Grisham, you know. So that's the first thing. Don't do it for money.
Mm,
Secondly, if I can write one, anybody can write one. How I wrote it was my Kathleen, my wife,
mm,
of American wife of 36 years, she's a voracious reader.
mm,
And essentially, I started writing this. I was driving 30, 40,000 miles a year in my
mm,
prime there about 10 years ago. That's a lot of driving and
for sure.
a lot of thinking, and I can
Hmm.
think of plots and I'm researching and then trying to put it into, as I said, uh, into how I see it on stage, whatever screen.
Sure.
And I would write 20, 30 pages and I'd come home after a long week and
Mm,
she'd read it and she'd say, you need to extend this character. This is a bit hokey and uh, she was marvelous.
mm,
And then she would, in essence, polish it up. And I had another friend who is in Florida, Judy. She is a retired librarian slash creative writing teacher. And we would send the 20 pages to Judy.
mm,
And Judy would do her thing on the 20 pages. And that's how the process for me. So, as I said, first, number one, don't expect to make money. Number two, if you have some good friends, anybody
sure.
can write a book, provided your ego will allow you to send it out and take ferocious criticism and panning and everything. But at the other end, have a better book because of it.
For
So
sure.
if you have friends and you have some story, everybody has a story,
For sure.
or it could have been a grandparent or something. that you can write about. It's that's the easy part, as I said. The hard part is to get it out there. I was lucky for years and years. I was on the stage and I could talk about my book, and so I sold a good few that way.
Mm. And now you're going to be on a stage in Cork very shortly, and you'll have an opportunity to
Forward to
speak
it,
about the
yes.
book again.
Yes.
Excellent stuff. It all comes back around it again. And it's nice that Cork is central to it once more. And you've always been a great advocate for the city, Cathal.
Well, I'm proud to be a Cork man.
Everyone is proud from being a Cork.
That's true. That's true.
No, and justifiably so, for sure. Thank you very much, Cathal, for taking the time to join us. I appreciate you taking time out of your day in Pittsburgh to join us on Cork Creative and to speak about your book and your process and your phenomenal career in music. It's great to hear it and to hear that historical context too, for everything from the 70s to the 80s and everything in between. It's been a fantastic podcast episode, and thank you for taking the time.
You're absolutely welcome. I just feel very lucky that I didn't set the world on fire musically, but I was able to make a living at what I love doing.
That's all any of us can aspire to do in the grand scheme of things. No, indeed. Thank you very much for your time, Cathal, and very best
Thanks,
of luck with
Patrick.
the book launch on the 26th.
And good luck with your podcast.
Thank you very much.